All right, well, I know we have almost, but we're right on time. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming to our safety meeting for April 7th. And, oh, what's the matter? Okay, we have, uh, oh my God, Brian, I can't think of, thank you, Mr. King, Ms. Sachs, Mr. Cooney, Mrs. Wise, Mr. Bryan, Mrs. Weiser, Chief Rogers, and Chief Perko. And thank you all for coming. And I'm gonna just try to jump right on in and get started on our agenda items so that we can get through all of the items today. Um, Try to keep our comments as minimal as possible. And today, our first item on the agenda. Oh, wait, I need to start the meeting. So the meeting is starting. The discussion regarding towing of parked vehicles, code section 40407, A1 and A10. So I briefly mentioned this particular ordinance, this proposed amendment um, in our last city council meeting. And if you look at, go to section A, where it says impounding of vehicles redemption, and go down to 10. We're gonna be looking at 10, and we're gonna be looking at B also. So it's A, 10, and then B. I don't know why that's on there. And then D. So we should have changed that on the agenda. And I didn't ask to have that changed. But if you're looking at section 10 where it says any vehicle is found upon a public street, any vehicle is found upon a public street, upon a public street or other property open to the public for purposes of vehicular travel in violation of the city's parking regulations, and for which two or more parking citations have been issued, and the owner or operator thereof has paid the waiver amount for or been convicted of two or more parking violations within the past 6 months. So we're looking at if a person has gotten the two tickets and they were responsible for those tickets, that's what this is covering. If people were not responsible for the ticket or were not held accountable for the ticket for some reason, those people would not um be towed. They wouldn't be subject to this. And the second is failed to respond. So to two or more parking citations as lawfully required. So those are the proposed changes for section 10. And then when you go down to B, such charges shall be paid to the proprietor of the garage by the owner of the motor vehicle upon its release, duly authorized by the chief of police or his or her designee, or the motor vehicle and otherwise compensated pursuant um, is lien for such storage charges. Then when you go to section D, where the vehicle is so impounded shall not be released except on written order signed by the police chief or his or her designated officer. And that's the change there. Everything else is proposed to be omitted. So this was proposed as a possible resolution. I know it's not going to be the end all be all, but it's a start to addressing some of our issues with the parking. And if I know tickets have been being issued, but it's still not keeping people from violating the parking. So I wanted to ask, the law director if he wanted to speak to anything in here. And then Chief Rogers.
Thanks, Ms. Marshall. So some of it's just cleaning up some of the antiquated language. We took out the language about the city being responsible for charges, paying the city, those types of things. So it just whoever's vehicle gets towed is responsible for paying the towing lot to get it out. So some of it's just cleaning up language, but the changes, the substantive changes are what Ms. Marshall described as far as the changes to the towing, and then for people with more than 2 violations. I talked to Chief Rogers about what the look back period would be. He suggested 6 months because this would have to be enforced, be able to be enforced by the police department. Their method of doing that is maintaining a list of, right now, the people who haven't responded to tickets and that fall into that category with more than 2 tickets. And then they would also have to maintain a list of people that have been responsible for more than 2 parking tickets within that 6-month period. So he can explain mechanically how they, the officer on the scene needs to handle that.
Okay, thank you. Chief Rogers.
Thank you. Just looking at the draft legislation as it is here. First question I do have is, again, for clarification, maybe on my end, but the way that A10 is written, this would technically allow for us to tow a vehicle multiple times within a 6-month period. Who would be in violation, have 2 prior parking citations that they either waived or were found guilty on. Is that accurate?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Regarding the tow list that we would manage then, so for general awareness now, the way the language is written regarding 2 outstanding parking tickets that were never paid for, that generally produces a tow list with about 20 to 30, sometimes 40 vehicles on it at any given time. So what happens is citations are issued, they're filed with the clerk, they input all of the parking enforcement ticket information into an access database, and that they utilize that database to generate reports, one of those being a tow list. So again, the current tow list is based on 2 outstanding tickets, and that produces usually results between 30 or 20 to 40
Is that
vehicles.
accessed from the mobile data terminal in the car, or is it a paper list?
So that would be an electronic list that gets shared with all officers and gets updated sometimes weekly. So we did some test reports based on the proposed draft language that's before committee here. And with just a 6-month look back period, keep in mind, we issue a few thousand parking tickets a year. You'll probably seen some of the data I recently provided. We're issuing, just in a certain area of the city, a few hundred every month. But with a 6-month look back period, to try to capture data that filters vehicles with 2 parking tickets that were waived or found guilty on over a 6-month period, that generates approximately 1,000 data entry points that we have to consider and go through to try to generate a parking tow list specific to this proposed language. So it definitely creates some administrative work to go through all of that data over a 6-month period. Again, it generated about 1,000 results that we'd have to go through just to put a list together. And then with a list of that magnitude, it then would have to be utilized by the officers to try to identify vehicles that would be in violation of the current new proposed ordinance language.
And how's the list put? Is it alphabetically by registered owner? Is it by license plate or how does
By
it?
license plate typically.
So is there an ability to put in the plate? Or you have to see?
Not necessarily, no. The way we have been doing it is the tow list is just shared electronically as a read only. It's not necessarily in a format or can be put in a format that we're aware of where it can be searched.
So
We
you have to
would,
look alphabetically through the.
yeah,
license plate.
we would, obviously with a list of this magnitude, we'd have to really look at how we produce reports and how we can make them more than just read only from the end user in a police card to be able to access. But that's stuff we would have to work through administratively through some of our reporting systems and make it accessible to be able to be used efficiently for the officers in the field to be able to search it.
Thank you. And so do you have a process now of, because how do you know the people who are repeat violators now without this ordinance being changed?
The search parameters that we put in place only generates about 20 to 40 vehicles. Search parameters that generally cover just two tickets that were issued produces about 1,000 results that we would have to go through. So it's not that it would be much different in terms of running a report or accessing the data in a report. It's just the volume of data is so much bigger because we're looking back for 6 months for all vehicles that are issued a ticket, not just vehicles that haven't paid a ticket.
So I'm just wondering why you starting with a look back period? Why don't you just start as of May 1st? And then now you start generating the list going forward instead of looking back and having all of that work.
Even so, it would have to be looked back 6 months at some point. We would still have a list that would have to capture what would typically produce about 1,000 results of data with that criteria.
Because what you're saying is if somebody gets a ticket May 1st, you want to see if they have a ticket previously
Mhm.
for their second ticket, right? But what I'm saying is why don't you just start May 1st and then continue forward?
No, I get what Chief Rogers is saying. Even if he did that now, 6 months from now, they will be looking back
Oh.
to see,
So that I understand, yeah.
within 6 months, if I'm issuing a ticket now, did this person get one 6 months ago?
Yeah.
But wasn't the
Right.
6 months your suggestion?
It wasn't my suggestion. It was more of anything we could do to limit the look back period because we did a test run of a year, which I think was originally how it was drafted before it made it to the floor or discussed at least. And again, that produced about 2,000 results of data that we would have to then incorporate into a tow list.
Okay.
But we could do that
But-
going forward with the vice mayor suggesting, just start putting people on the list from, whatever the date is forward. And then once we get to 6 months, there would be the 6 month cutoff. People would be eliminated once they get the
That-
6 months.
Yeah,
That's
I
what-
understand the concept of creating the list and not looking back from today, but at some point we're dealing with a list that
Right,
is
so we have
very
to be,
significant.
because you don't want to hold people responsible for
But-
20 years ago.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but
That's wrong.
it's not, because if you start, I'm throwing dates up, you start May 1st, you're not looking back, you're only looking forward, and then you're catching yourself up, right? So if the same vehicle gets tagged another month from now,
Mhm.
right? And if it's within 6 months, you already have that information because you have from May 1st and then you have from June.
I'm not disputing that. We could create the list going forward. Again, the issue is at some point, you're going to have a 6 month look back period of such a large scale of data that officers are going to have to reference in the field. It's not so much just creating it, but at some point it's just managing the data.
Okay.
on
Once
the
you get
list.
to November, you'll be over the
I hear
1,000
that,
and you'll keep
yeah.
multiple.
Thank you. Ms. Sack.
Thank you. I can appreciate that administration. I'm hearing what you're saying. Do you think though, with the towing, that is going to reduce these incidents over time? I mean, I don't know how much we've enforced that. So maybe people will get the message. That's part one. second part is, otherwise, what do you recommend to get this under control? Because it feels out of control.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so I'll just refer to the towing part. We have been towing more vehicles than we ever have. I don't have the specific data with us today, but we have been towing more so because we've been issuing a lot more tickets, as you've seen in some of the data that I provided. We've also been issuing, again, a significant amount of citations for parking violations in certain parts of the city that we've never seen before. They're historical numbers. We've also had, 60 to 70% increase in complaints received through November of last year as compared to prior to 2022 before the Belvoir lock closed. So we've seen, again, a significant amount of enforcement, an increase in towing vehicles. And I'm not sure any of that has really created an outcome that has resolved this issue so far. So I don't know what the answer is. And I've said in multiple meetings, when you displace a 300-car lot on South Belvoir where a school has all of their event centers, their sporting venues, student centers, and other things that occur in that area of campus without an ability to get on the campus to even try to get to parking on other western parts of the campus. It's a problem, and I'm not sure it's a problem that enforcement will fix. I don't know. You've seen where we've increased, 100% of enforcement in certain areas. Has it, in your opinion, has it resolved the matter? I don't think it has because we're still talking about it at the committee here.
Thank you. Do you have the data about between the first and the second ticket? Are these people that just keep parking there and they don't care?
I did
Because if
produce,
so, you can lessen it to 3 months and then just tow them. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
I did produce some repeat offender data a few months ago. I don't have that with me today, but yeah, there is some significant data that shows that there are repeat offenders.
And that would be
Right.
reflected in that 1,000 number, right? That's the repeat
Mhm.
offenders within the last 6 months.
Yes, just again, the trial, data reports that we're running.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, first of all, Ms. Marshall, I think you raised a very good point about, even if you start with May, by the time you get to November, you're at 6 months, and then we got to figure out how and when we do a drop off. Is it going to be the first of every month? Is it literally to the day? Talking 6 months, 180 days. There's a lot of room in there that we want to make sure we have tamped down if we're going to do that. It may be that if we see the kind of repeat offenders that we do, that there's an economic decision that's being made to accept getting a certain number of parking tickets in lieu of either buying a parking pass or just rationalize it as this is the cost of parking. I get a parking ticket here and there. So it may be that the first and far easier thing to enforce to begin with is just increasing the fine and see where that gets us and see if incidents are down, if repeat offenders are down. And it addresses the economic argument for not parking where you shouldn't park and making it more cost prohibitive to park illegally and risk a ticket than to park legally, but further away than they want to be. While at the same time avoiding having to not start, but really upticking the number of cars we tow and the administrative problem for our police officers in the field to have to stop and check a list and see if this is a car getting its first ticket or its third or fourth ticket. And it may be that, we've done some strengthening of this ordinance, and it may be that the step here is the fine and then see where we are, in a few months.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Weiser.
Chief, and I'm not familiar with how versatile the the system is in the cars. When this file gets saved, is it getting saved in like a PDF format? Because PDFs are searchable.
Yes.
Okay,
It's usually just emailed to all the officers. They can access it in their cars.
as a file, is it possible to have that be accessible in the car? Does the car computer have Adobe Acrobat that they can open it
Yep.
and just search the plate?
It's possible. Again, we would have to create a process and some guidance on how we're going to streamline
Well,
that.
I understand, yeah, that sometimes people, I'm used to it because I do a lot of work in terms of data. But I would think if the program is actually saving it out as a PDF, and if Adobe Reader's there, once they open that file, there is a find, and just putting in the license number would bring them right to it,
Right.
which
Mhm.
would not take any extended period of time to search. I agree, and I understand that not everyone is computer savvy, and you may have to go the extra step with your officers. But it might be an easy way, if this gets passed, to attempt to apply it where they don't have to deal with paper. And they can quickly find the offending license number.
And that's a good point. And the other consideration again is we would have two separate tow lists that we would try to administratively integrate for the officers to possibly access and search with one stop. The more officers have their face looking at a screen and trying to search databases in the field, the less comfortable I am about a new process. But again, we would have two tow lists, one for two outstanding that they never resolved, and then whatever, there would be a number that they would just receive a ticket for.
Well, the way I'm reading this, and I don't know, Mr. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. If you had two tickets, even if you paid them
Yes,
in that
Yeah.
6-month period,
yes.
and right now, we're not towing those people, are we?
No, we're towing vehicles that have two outstanding tickets that they
Outstanding
did not
ones.
resolve.
But that would actually let you just, if this passes, then your list doesn't have to be a separate tow list. It just has to contain all of the people with 2 or more tickets in a 6-month period when it's run.
That would be a tow list, yeah.
Yeah, but that should take care of it, because even if they paid those tickets, they'll be on it.
Yes,
And even if it's which I was amazed, 1,000 tickets. Wow, and I'm so careful not to get those. Guess I'm cheap. The reality is just being able to enter a number would be able to pull it up, and then you can come to a quick decision. And I'm sure they'd be unhappy if we came to too quick a decision.
possibly.
No.
But again, there would still be two different tow lists with two different criteria that officers would have to access. We try to somehow streamline that together administratively, so they're looking at one place for the data they need.
So it sounds to me, because you are issuing tickets, that's not working, and we gotta do something. And I'm thinking adding something else in there as another deterrent is going to make people less likely to keep violating.
Ms. Marshall,
Yes,
if I may, if the majority intent is to pursue and continue with enhanced towing capabilities,
I couldn't
Um,
hear you. Say that
if
again.
the intent of the majority here is to continue with looking at enhanced towing capabilities,
Uh-huh.
for every, I guess, ticket that we would add to the look back period, let's say instead of 2 or 3, it was 4 or 5, it would make the tow list and administrative process with that list that much less, and it would be a much more reduced list for the individuals that are truly abusing and repeat offenders of this. So just for consideration, for every number that goes up, I think it really targets or addresses the repeat offenders in terms of for the look back period. So let's say it's 5 in a 6-month period. And also gives us something that's much more manageable to work with administratively.
Do you know the average response time for the tow truck to get on the scene after their call? I know
Well,
it varies, but
Yeah, I mean, majority of times we're using a tow truck is for accidents with priority in a street. So probably a half hour for parking. Unless it's blocking traffic, that's different. And let me be clear, we have priority regardless as a police department, but they still prioritize other police agencies' needs as well.
Thank you. Okay, so let me understand this. So you're saying the more times that people get tickets, it's easier administratively. It's less burdensome.
Hmm.
Easy isn't the word, less burdensome. Okay. And perhaps if each time the cost escalates, I don't know, but still perhaps without paying ticket, it shortens that and they get towed anyway. So they either would have to pay until they get to that threshold, or they ignore the tickets in a lesser amount and get towed.
Yeah, so that has still been two. That, again, that produces a list of 20 to 40 vehicles, the two outstanding. But let's say hypothetically, if it was five tickets over a 6-month period that somebody was issued and found guilty or waived on, that I think that again would address more of the higher level of repeat offenders and give us something easier to manage administratively. And that number could maybe provide us a better idea of how this legislation would impact the community for 1 and 2, if it needed to be modified going forward, possibly reduced to, let's say, 3. That can always be done as well.
And Ms. Marshall, if I can address, were you also asking if fines could be increased for multiple offenders? There's one issue with that, that we'll talk about when we get to the other part of the ordinance. I mean, the parking tickets have the amounts pre-printed on them, so if we raise them, the department needs to get new tickets printed.
We'll go through
And I
that.
don't know if the court can figure that out and sort it out if it's the opposite, like the multiple offenders with multiple, it gets confusing for the court.
Yeah, it was very difficult just for them to have 3 tiers for handicap parking fines. Shaker, they did not have that built in their software, and Shaker PD did not have 3 tiers. We had to work out a solution for them to enhance their software just to accommodate 3 tiers for one type of ticket. So yeah, that was difficult.
So let me understand, if I may, this ordinance that we're looking at has increased fines. So that's
Yes.
already in process, and it would require the tickets to be
Yeah.
printed anyways.
Right.
But are you saying there's yet another issue, and that's at the court end with not being able to keep up with the processing of that?
No, I think what I thought you were asking is if like somebody's first parking ticket
Mhm.
is a certain fine, and if you
Mhm.
get a second parking ticket, it's a higher fine.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's
I
not
think
being
that is a
proposed.
problem.
That would be difficult.
So right now it proposes, raising the fines, but it's still the same amount. If it's your
Ah.
third ticket, it's still the same amount as.
Okay.
your first.
Yeah, that's not.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. I remember like years ago, we used to have every year or every other year, a towing contract with companies, with a tow company. I haven't seen that in a long time. Is that something that we need to investigate if we're possibly going to be increasing?
We've had the same contract in place with United Towing since I think 2002 or 2003, and it was approved by ordinance. And it's just a contract that identifies in ordinance what the max amount that the vendor can charge for certain types of towing.
Right, I mean, I know we have like a towing ordinance, but I know the contract used to come to council. I just don't remember seeing that for a long time.
I have not seen that contract before council in 8 years. And again, the last time it was before council and updated, I think was early 2000s.
The ordinance actually has a company written in there?
I think the contract with United was a companion piece with the ordinance going back 20 years.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
if it's gonna increase, maybe it's something to look at, that's all.
Um,
I mean,
that-
we don't get
Yeah,
any payment from that.
Yeah,
It's
we don't
just-
have stake in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, and if you look at subsection B, it says the Director of Public Safety may from time to time designate one or more public garages within the county as motor vehicle pounds, may designate. So it's, right now, the ordinance gives the Director of Public Safety the authority to
Choose.
select one or more towing companies. And again, it's not costing us money because they're charging. Person.
Thank you.
So the goal is not to put more work on the police department. But we have to do something. We've been talking about this way too long. And we just should not keep having meeting after meeting about the same thing. We gotta do something.
Thank you,
Mr. Cooney,
thank you. So, South Belmar, it's no parking 8 AM to 8 PM. Is that the restriction?
There's a couple different restrictions on Belvoir.
There's
One is,
multiple, yeah,
one is 1 hour.
right?
One area used to be 2 hours.
So what's the,
Now it's prohibited. There may be a resident permit street with some of those timeframes. I don't recall specifically off the top of my head, though. There's a lot of different parking provisions in that area. I know that.
right, I'm looking at, there's on the page 1 here, you're referencing Brownlee Road. What's the restriction on Brownlee?
Where are you referring to?
In the first page here. The data.
that were
Oh.
passed.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Bromley's residential permit parking only.
okay, would that be the same for Claver, Milton, Elmdale, like that whole, all
No.
those streets? No.
So Almdale is the first street east of that location. It does not have residential permit parking restrictions or any time restrictions, which, as you've probably seen or heard, there's complaints that Elmdale is now being used as a parking lot during the day.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, so if no one else has any more comments on this particular ordinance. Yes, Mayor.
I just want to make sure that we consider the propriety of towing somebody if they've actually paid the tickets. You know, I get unpaid tickets because you're not honoring the citation that you've received. And, you know, we are doing that now. But I'm not aware of any jurisdiction that tows people after they've paid parking tickets. And then when you go to get a car released, you know, it's not like you have outstanding fines except for the ticket you may have just received because I want us to consider very carefully, you know, this proposal. That's all.
Yeah.
I don't know that this is. I don't know. I think it lacks proportionality.
Yeah, I have definitely considered that. My attitude is this. If you pay 2 tickets, but you still decided you're gonna keep parking illegally, that's telling me you want your car towed. Because why do you think that you have the right to keep parking where you're not supposed to just because you're paying the ticket? That's like they're saying, oh, well, I'll just pay the ticket. It's easier for me to just pay the ticket because that's what's convenient for them. But they're not concerned about how it's affecting everybody else. So and that's everyone. That's not just the students and all of that. That's anybody in the city. We're not supposed to be parking on the streets at specific times, overnight, any of that, unless we have the special, we put in the request and all of that. People are just doing whatever they want to do. And I really believe that if there's some true consequences, we're going to see a miraculous decrease in a lot of this. I just believe that, but that's what I believe. I don't know what anybody else believes. So if anybody else doesn't have any other comments on a discussion, I'm gonna ask if there's a motion to move it to city council for consideration.
So moved.
Second. All right, I'll second to move it to city council for consideration. At the next council meeting, not today's meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. I'm just a little, we heard a lot of issues from Chief Rogers on how to implement this. I don't know if we're quite ready to move forward at this pace.
So
I would be more interested to get some more background on their back end systems and how it might be more easily accomplished administratively on their end before we move forward to council.
Okay, and Chief Rogers, you think that by the next safety meeting, you can have all of that information?
I think we can look at some options on our end, yes.
Yeah,
and-
because I know you have been talking with the law director on this
Mhm.
for a while now, so.
Yeah, and again, we'd be looking at options with the current draft in front of us, which is 2 or more violations in the previous 6 months, not a number higher than 2, right?
So what are you suggesting in place of that?
Again, for every number we go up, it reduces significantly the volume of data we'd have to process on our end. And 2, it really identifies the significant repeat offenders of parking ordinance violations.
So you feel like if it was 3, then it'll be less?
It would definitely produce less data for us to manage, and it would more focus on the significant repeat offenders. But I'm not on
Yeah.
this committee, and I'm not legislation on this.
Thank you.
It just seems to me like we're going back to making it easy and in a way to make it less effective. I know I don't want to pay a $75 ticket, and I definitely don't want to pay it twice or 3 times. People are getting these tickets because you said yourself, it issuing hundreds. You just said it stopped you up to like 1,000 in 6 months, but it's not stopping them from violating. So I'm kind of thinking that if we increase those fees, that's gonna lessen those numbers, because less people, once they start seeing they have to pay that $75, it seems to me like they would be less likely to keep parking there. They might as well go ahead and pay that $300 to the school for the semester, as opposed to keep paying for those $75 tickets plus a tow. So I don't know, but
Yeah.
if you can, I just feel like we just keep dragging this out and we're beating a dead horse. Yes,
Thank you, Ms. Marshall.
we passed.
I would just, as long as it can be managed. If you can manage the data, that's great. You ran into an issue with the inspections because what looked good on paper was not manageable by the department. So I feel your frustration. I'm with you. Upon receipt of the 3rd violation, if that becomes more manageable, we're getting complaints. We want to get it resolved. At the end of the day, it doesn't solve the root cause. The root cause is the availability of parking on the east side of the campus for John Carroll. That's the root cause. So, but, I'm with you on the ordinance. I just want to make sure if we're going to do something that's manageable by the chief and his staff.
We'll keep looking into it, either whatever that number is, we'll keep looking and see what we can do to streamline it. Also, just for awareness, we talked about this last time we modified the fines. There would be some significant lead time if we have to redesign our parking tickets. It would have to go through a vetting process, and the proofs would have to be approved by the court. We still have a pretty significant amount of tickets in our inventory that we would have to assess on what we're going to do with those. But there would be, again, some significant lead time to where we could become operational with the new tickets in the field.
And see, and I'm aware of that, which takes, this is exactly what happened last year. Everything was time consuming. So the issue never got resolved. School was out, started back again, same issues. And it's gonna be the repeat when we do this. We're gonna delay this some more. And then when you come back for the safety meeting, the next safety meeting, if you couldn't figure out a way to manage it, then what do we do?
I guess we'll have to figure that out. But either way, again, for just the printing and proof,
that's
review and
fine.
approval, that's a month or 2 on itself, because
I
we have to
remember.
coordinate the prosecutor and the court's office to approve whatever the proof is that's created by the printing company.
Right, I remember. Took a while. I think you got them around May of last year or something like that.
April.
Yes, Ms. Weiser. And then I'm gonna move
I'm
to the next.
assuming, number one, chief, that the tickets go down in the summer
Generally, yes.
significantly.
Mhm.
Okay. Number two, I think I need to remind everyone that freshmen at John Carroll will not have cars next year. So well, I don't think it's gonna solve the whole problem because there's still 3 classes with cars. I think that might reduce a portion of the problem just naturally. Now, am I betting on it? Every time John Carroll comes up with something they think's gonna fix it, it doesn't. But at least there is the potential for that to occur. I just wanted to remind everybody about that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, after you, Mayor, then I'm gonna move on to the next topic, the
Yeah.
next agenda item, because we are.
Sure, I'll be
we spent
brief.
Too much time on this one.
It's also possible, with regard to the last point, if freshmen aren't allowed to have cars, that means they won't be able to buy a parking pass, which means that any freshman who does have a car will be parking it on the street somewhere, which means we may actually see more illegally parked cars, not fewer. So, whatever we decide to do,
We might.
definitely would
take
want
away
it in
data.
place before the new semester.
Wait a minute, you said we might have more,
Illegally parked cars, because if freshmen aren't allowed to have cars, that means they're not allowed to have cars on campus. That means they can't buy a parking pass, which means they may just park it on the street. We may actually see more cars illegally parked.
those tickets need to be increased. Okay, so I'm gonna take Mr. King's advice. I'm gonna wait until the next safety committee meeting and move this. I'm sorry. Are you okay with that?
Yes, I want to say one quick thing,
ahead.
and that is the elephant in the room is John Carroll University had all these contracts for shuttle and parking off-site, so they're just not enforcing it. And that, to Mr. Cooney's, just I agreed with everything except that piece because we're just not addressing that with them. Okay, and in that, having said that, I withdraw my motion to
Okay,
wait.
okay, and I
Thank you.
withdraw my second. Thank you. And so we're gonna wait until the next safety, put this back on the next safety agenda meeting. Hopefully Chief Rogers, so Chief, what you're looking at now is trying to see if you can manage it with the 2 parking tickets, correct?
2 different tow lists, managing that data they would have produced and making it streamlined and accessible for officers in the field. And also we'll look at getting some proofs done for new tickets as well, or even if there's a cheaper and more effective way to use stickers on the current ticket, we'll look at all that in the meantime.
Okay, and then do you wanna look at what it would look like if it was changed from 2 parking tickets to 3, which I'm really, I don't know.
I can still look at that in our end. It's just changing different search criteria.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you so much.
mhm.
Moving on to agenda item number 2, discussion regarding parking penalties code 452.99. Where is my stuff? Oh, it's on the same one. If you turn to, I believe it's the last page, nope, the second to the last page, 452.99. The whole thing is just to change, when you go down to A, if paid within 30 days of the issuance of a ticket, a fine in the sum of $75. And B, if more than 30 days after the issuance of a citation, but before 60 days after the issuance of the citation, a fine in the sum of $150. And then C, if paid more than 60 days after the issuance of the citation, a fine in the sum of $150. So we, on our last agenda item, we mentioned this quite a bit, but I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to that. It's pretty much right there what we're trying to do. Does anybody want to add anything? Okay, awesome. Can I get a motion to refer it to city council for the next city council meeting?
Just have a
Oh, go ahead,
comment
Brian.
first. So this would require changing the tickets, right? Which, and the towing would require changing the tickets, correct?
The fines would require changing the tickets. So what we did last time when we changed these tickets is the prosecutor weighed in and said that we would be using a prosecutorial discretionary function of collecting fines for the previous amount prior to council approving a new amount. And then once everything is approved, the proofs are approved, the tickets are printed, then we would start enforcing the fines that council has already authorized.
You could provide, and again, we would split two code section amendments into two, so the ordinance would just cover 452.99. And then we could treat the other one separately if we're advancing this to council now. And we could set an effective date in the future in the legislation. We just wanted to pick when we're starting it, whether it's, August 1st to cover the next.
Well, again, it really just depends when we get the new tickets in and we go through the process before we order them. And it takes time.
Okay. Well, having heard that, then I will move to send this to council.
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, it's
Thank you,
gonna,
Chief.
go ahead. Yeah, thanks, Chief Rogers. It's gonna be moved on to the next council meeting for consideration. And thank you all so much for.
Ms. Marshall,
Yes, sir.
if in some of our administrative due diligence processes that'll occur over the next week or two, allows council and our administration to be comfortable for the towing aspect to be placed on the next council meeting, I'll reach out to you in the meantime.
Okay, thank you so much. That sounds good. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So our next agenda item is ordinance 2025-07, establishing section 1280-14 of the zoning code prohibiting. No, that's not supposed to be the next. I'm sorry. Discussion regarding codified ordinance 45219 residence permit parking program. So Mr. Cooney and I have been discussing this for quite some time. And when I spoke with Mr. Cooney, one of the things that he was interested in was, so right now, the current restricted streets that have restricted parking are Kerwick, Hadley, Loyola, Lake Lamont, Milford, Conover, Meadowbrook between Hillbrook and Washington Boulevard, and Glendon between Meadowbrook and Washington Boulevard and Bromley Road. That is listed under E under the ordinance. And Mr. Cooney is suggesting to possibly add University Parkway between Bromley Road and Milton Road. Milton Road between Groveland Road and University Parkway, and Bromley Road. Also adding Carroll Boulevard, Kerwick Road, South Boulevard between Fairmont Boulevard and Silsby Road, and Miramar between Silsby and Milford. So I'm gonna turn this over to Mr. Cooney.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. When I looked at the ordinance for the residential permit parking program, I looked at the streets that were involved. And then I started taking a little bit wider view. As part of this based on an email that I received from a resident about cars on the street. And when I looked at where schools were, Garrity, Jesu, and I was looking at that for those trafficked areas for that. And then obviously with the parking, as we just discussed, regarding the violations are being issued along South Belvoir Road. I was wondering if we should re-engage the residents, look at the streets, expand the streets, re-engage the residents to register for the permits. So obviously, if they have guests over and, we don't want them getting tickets. But basically try to look at schools and the surrounding areas for that. We had something on the books, should these streets be updated to reflect, additional streets for that. Because obviously one of the things that's going to impact, I'm looking forward, as John Carroll develops Fairmont Circle, there's going to be an increase of cars that are going to be moved towards the Warrensville Center Road area. And basically try to make the streets essentially, as buses go up and down, there's drop offs in the morning, that we don't have cars blocking those streets during the day that would impact the residents, but also the school areas.
Ms. Sacks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney.
Mr. Cooney, did you go to those streets at school drop-off time and observe?
I have been in those areas, yes.
I was there on September 30th, Monday, which coincides with rubbish collection. I was there again on Monday, March 10th. And I took a minute-by-minute account. I took pictures. I talked to parents, and there was no safety concern. On both occasions, I came to that conclusion. And it sounded like there could be a perfect storm, that there could be all this commotion and collision, and there just wasn't. There wasn't. By the time the rubbish trucks came, the Kubotas, the cars that were legally parked really weren't there. And the only cars that were there, I'm talking about University Parkway specifically by Garrity, were Elmdale, which were parked overnight. I also took pictures on Washington, where the sign clearly said no parking before 8 a.m. and they were snow-covered cars at 7:24. So the problem is with the illegally parked cars. Currently, the legally parked cars did not seem to pose a safety problem. And I would encourage you to go see before going to this extreme. Thank you.
Are you,
Ms.
I'm sorry,
Ms.
Ms. Marshall, go ahead.
Ms.
ahead,
Weiss had her hand up. Go ahead, Mr. Cooney.
Regards to Washington Boulevard, are you saying we should add Washington Boulevard?
Washington Boulevard just needs to, for one thing, needs to park legally. People just need to not park overnight and not park where it says not to corner. That's where the problem is. The buses try to come, a trash collection, and I've seen that is a problem, because if they would just follow the signs that we already currently have and the rules we have, I think it would be okay.
So essentially what I want to do is I want to give residents the opportunity to park there where they do not get a ticket. I want to separate the residents from those that should be using other parking options. That's what I'm trying to encourage. We have a residential parking permit program. As I view the information, and we've talked about it quite a bit, we could have a resident that's parked on the street that gets a ticket in some of these areas. What I want to do is allow them, we should re-engage the parking program, consider updating the streets so that if they have friends or somebody over, a guest over, they're not going to get a ticket. That's what I'm looking to do.
I shouldn't have a ticket now.
So if your comment is about Washington Boulevard, should
It's-
that be between Miramar and, Milton? We could
I don't
add
see
that to it.
cars parked on Miramar, between Miramar and.
You just-
Milton on Washington. No, from a little strip from Belvoir to, it's just before Bromley,
If we,
or Bromley.
if
That's
we
it.
begin to,
But it's always says
But
no
if-
parking.
right, if we begin to start enforcing the parking, they're going to shift where they can. So that's why I want to include those streets. That's
Thank
why.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So two things. One is I would like to see items 1 and 2 enforced before we start changing resident parking pieces. The second piece is every time I'm walking by Jesu or Garrity or, especially over the past, I would say 6 years, I've discussed with residents there about resident parking, and every single one has said it doesn't work. They have students parking there. They have, I mean, you can go any time of the day, Lealmont, Loyola, they're filled because no one's abiding by resident parking. So I don't think that program works. I think we need to rethink that anyways, but I think we should try 1 and 2 before we start messing around with resident parking. That's just my comment.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Ms. Weiser.
Um, just for the record, I have an issue period with permit parking. I know why we started it over there, and it's an imperfect solution because obviously it's still problematic. But what in essence it says is you can't park on my street. And I live here and I pay taxes. So if I drive over there and park on the street, if I don't have a permit, you're gonna tell me, a taxpayer in this city, I can't park on a city street? See, we get real focused on it's the students, but there are multiple people who park on those streets. And when we get into permit parking, you're walking a fine line. You're also beginning to say, in certain sections of the city, that is their right to only have who they choose to park on their street, park on their street. And that gets problematic. It does. We live in a democracy. You're gonna tell me I can't park on that street? Is that what you're saying to me? You're saying I can't park on that street, even though I'm a taxpayer in this city, because I don't have a permit to park in that street. And I'm contributing to the tax base just like they are. Now, I realize we started out doing it because we were attempting to control some of the craziness with students. And I hear what the vice mayor is saying. Maybe we need to take 1 and 2 and start really enforcing it. And I think these kids have gotten a wake-up call because unfortunately, our police department's spending a lot of time over there writing tickets. And that may help to change some behavior. On top of it, if John Carroll starts to open up some of those parking spaces again, and they take a whole class of students and say, you're not going to bring a car, we don't know if the parking's going to change over there. So why would we start adding streets?
Mr. King.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Ms.
Marshall.
Weiser.
I think I'm with the Vice Mayor and Councilwoman Weiser here. I'd like to see if we can tighten up the towing and fines and see if we get the results that we like before looking at the resident permit parking program.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Coney.
Thank you. So currently, it's not about you can't park here. Right now, if you park there, you're gonna get a ticket.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's,
I don't want to get a ticket.
Exactly.
I pay taxes.
so there's obviously a parking issue around John Carroll.
Mhm.
That's my focus. We don't have similar parking issues in other parts of the city. So by looking at this, is an ordinance on the books. Want to re-engage the residents for that and see if it should be expanded. Because we can give the residents an option for their guests to find parking so that they do not get a ticket. And those that we want to encourage to get to the offsite parking to go find it.
Once again, you are saying to me, as a taxpayer in this city, that I have no right to park on that street. That's what you are saying to me. If you continue to expand it, You are expanding areas that I cannot park in. That's what you're saying to me.
If you have a reason to be there, then you're
You
not
are
gonna get a
saying,
ticket.
but I have to have a permission of a resident to be there.
A resident permit parking program is not unusual. Number one, it's already in the books.
Actually, I think maybe we might look at if John Carroll's move to start reducing cars and having the kids live on campus, we actually might be able to remove it.
I hope it works. I
We
do.
Don't know yet,
I
do
do.
we?
All right,
But what I don't want to do is have nothing being done and we continue on the same path.
Well,
we're on
that's
right
why
now.
we're talking about 1 and 2.
yeah. Sure. Okay, any more comments on this particular agenda item? So what I feel like I'm hearing is that, the majority of everyone is wanting to pretty much table this, the resident permit parking program discussion until we can address the issues with, agenda items 1 and 2 with the penalties and the tolling. Am I correct on that? All that agree, aye? I mean, I don't know, so, okay,
Aye.
I'm gonna move on, it's gonna be tabled.
And here, vote.
Yeah, do we want to take?
You
a
gotta
vote?
vote. Yeah,
Table it, please.
I asked, do y'all want, and
You
no.
asked, is there
Aye.
a motion?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
okay,
Is that for the committee?
so this, okay,
Nay.
okay, all right. I'm pretty sure we'll come back to it. I'm gonna move on to, I'm sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
Oh.
speak.
I'm gonna go to item number 4 on the agenda, the ordinance 2025-07, establishing section 128014 of zoning coding prohibiting the manufacturing, distributing, storage, and sale of fireworks. Chief Perko, if you don't mind.
Sure. I took some time today to kind of put a timeline together just for myself, to make sense of how we got here from where we started. So I just wanted to say that, my perspective on the fireworks ordinances are obviously the safety of the city. I'm not here to advocate for fireworks, or against them. It's to make sure that we're safe. This journey with the fireworks started in February of 2022. The vice mayor proposed an ordinance that was ultimately passed on February 7th of 2022, which was from the new House Bill 172 with changes on the state of Ohio with fireworks. It was at that meeting that then Councilperson Gould, who was our safety committee chair at that time, reached out to me about some additional ordinance language from neighboring communities about zoning restrictions and prohibiting the sale and distribution. So we had a safety committee in March of 2022 where Mr. Gould made a motion that was passed, drafting multiple companion ordinances to the original one that was passed. We had a follow-up safety committee meeting in April of 2022. The law director, Luke McConville at the time, presented those additional companion ordinances, and those were ultimately referred to the committee of the whole for permitting fee review. There was some discussion about the cost of overtime to staff an event, like a fireworks event, for fire prevention people and fire apparatus. And in June of that year, I reached out to see what the status was from the committee of the whole, and I don't think it was ever actually presented there. There was ongoing discussion with the safety committee chair and the law department at that time throughout the remainder of 2022. And as we closed out that year, I recommended to Luke McConville to proceed with the companion ordinances as he had them drafted. June of 2023, I received notice from a fireworks manufacturer that they wanted to come into the city and ship fireworks here and sell them as retail. I had reached out about these ordinances and what the statuses were. Pretty much throughout 2023 and 2024, I really didn't get a response. We also had change in leadership. Mr. Gould had stepped down and Mr. McConville was getting ready to step down. This was brought back up in June of last year to Safety Committee with Ms. Marshall being the current chair. We reviewed these items. We sent them to Mr. Bryan for legal review. These were discussed in the October Safety Committee meeting again. In the November 2024 Safety Committee, there were some additional updates from the Law Department. And then ultimately, they were put on Safety Committee for March of 2025 this year. Then they were removed from Safety Committee and put on council instead. And then at that council meeting, they were referred back to Safety Committee tonight. So nothing's really changed since Mr. Bryan's originally put those drafts out that I'm aware of, at least. Let him speak to that, I suppose. But these are still the companion ordinances from the original ones to address the zoning and to decide if we want to have language to allow for an exhibit that would be allowable with the confines and the small geographic constraints with our city here.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Bryan?
As Chief Perko said, I think they've been essentially the same since November, or whenever that safety committee, after the October meeting, when some minor changes were made. So the first ordinance in the 128014 is a zoning ordinance just prohibiting fireworks plants in the city, and also manufacturing, distribution, storage, retail, sale, and wholesale sale of fireworks wouldn't be allowed in the city due to its, size and density. It's really not safe here to have the storage and those types of establishments. So it's a zoning ordinance that will prohibit it, and then the chapter 15 item is setting up procedure fees for people that want to have displays that have to be done by companies that are licensed by the state of Ohio to put on those displays. Gives the fire chief and police chief, authority over permitting them and allowing them, city, making sure they're done safely. Or if they don't meet the criteria, it gives them the authority to say no, that it can't happen.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. So are there any comments or discussion on item 4, the 120/80/14 of the zoning? Mrs. Wise?
Yeah, I'll talk specifically only about 4 right now. I think that's just upholding what we have already on the books. It was just minor adjustments. But we, at that time, and what's on the books right now is that there isn't a ban on selling of fireworks in the city.
Yeah, because I see on the back, the changes in this, it looks minor. Did anyone else have any other comments? Is there a motion to move, refer to city council for the next city council meeting?
So moved.
Second. So it's gonna be referred to the next council.
Do you want to vote?
Is it somebody, I'm sorry,
Are you gonna have discussion?
can we have,
Discussion.
I thought we did have a discussion.
No.
So does anybody have
Question.
discussion on it? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms.
Thank
Jackson.
you. So Chief Perko, Chief Rogers, you are in favor of this? After all that, it sounded like you've been waiting for an answer? Okay,
Yeah, I think the zoning would be an appropriate
okay,
action for moving forward.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Marshall.
You're welcome. Any other discussion? Ms. Weiser?
Yeah, my understanding is, if I understood you right, there's only one place in the city where this can happen.
So related to zoning for sales, distribution and storage, that this would eliminate that completely. And then I think you're possibly referring into the number 5 agenda item.
Okay, so this is just about storage.
Right, but they are kind of companion because if we had an exhibitor come on site, they are technically storing it
Yeah,
for a
so
number
I
of
guess,
hours.
I'm asking about 5 also.
Yes. To have an exhibit come in and do a fireworks show here in the city of University Heights. This is ultimately governed by the State Fire Marshal's office. The hosting party would have to hire a vendor and that vendor has to apply for a permit through the State Fire Marshal's office. And then the police and fire chiefs sign off on that State Fire Marshal's permit. And then the state either grants it or they don't. In order to meet a permit that would be granted here in this city with the size requirements for fallout and protection areas, what you have typically seen at John Carroll would be the largest show that we could have, and that would be the only location we could have it. So anything permitted additional to that would be something scaled much smaller, if it was even possible.
Okay, Ms. Weiser, hold that thought for me, please. I want to finish with item 4 before we
Okay,
go on to
But I
item
th-
5.
if item 4 is passed, does it give permission for item 5 to proceed? If item 5 doesn't proceed, what is the impact on item 4? Maybe I should ask that way.
Gotcha.
I can answer that. So it would prohibit anyone from having a fireworks manufacturing plant in the city, a wholesale distribution
Or
plant,
storage.
or store or warehouse.
Okay, so this prohibits that.
Yes.
Okay, that, I just was trying to get that clarified. Thank you.
Gotcha. Thank you.
If I may.
Yes, Chief Burko.
So that would include residentials as well. You know, we would not want to see people, since they have the ability to go out and buy pallets worth of fireworks, now storing them in their basement or their residential garage. This would.
Well, we already have something that says you're not allowed to possess them, so that sort of solves that.
Thank you all so much. Any more discussion or comment? Okay, so all in favor of moving, go ahead, Mr. King.
No,
Oh.
I was just getting ready to,
All in favor of referring this item, the agenda item to city council for the next city council meeting?
aye.
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 Aye, okay. Next council meeting it is. Okay, now we can go on to agenda item number 5, ordinance 2025-06, amending chapter 1615 of the city fire code related to fireworks. And I know we have had some discussion. Did you want to say anything else on that particular one, Chief Perko?
No, I don't have anything to add at this time.
Okay, and Ms. Weiser, did you want to go ahead
Yeah.
and finish saying what you were
Yeah.
gonna say?
So Chief, if this passes, in essence, the only people in the city that could apply for such a license is John Carroll.
I believe it would allow anyone to apply, but the only persons that would potentially be granted a permit would be John Carroll.
So this change is for John Carroll.
Yes, there is a vendor that reached out already, February of this year, seeking approval for a venue in June of this year.
And does this change, and directed to you, Mr. Bryan, require any notification of the residents around that area where these fireworks would be displayed or shot off?
I don't believe this contemplates that.
So there's nothing that would alert residents that a firework display would happen if a permit would be granted.
I don't think there's anything written in there.
No, there's nothing in the ordinance that specifically requires any specific notice. It would be a public permit, obviously. That
Thank you.
would be a public record.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Weiss.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Marshall. So there was actually a lot of discussion regarding when the new bill came out in 2022. One of the biggest complaints we get are when you hear illegal fireworks being shot off are I have PTSD. This is very disturbing to me. My animals are scared. And it's over and over and over again. And John Carroll is smack in the middle of the city. There's no notice that's going to be given out. And I'm against this just in general. I don't think we should be doing this here.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Weiser. Ms. Wise, Chief Parko.
Again, I'm not advocating either way. And as Mr. Bryan said, the ordinance does not indicate that there's a requirement to notify, but obviously if there were permits of this nature in the future, we could definitely arrange for the Fire Prevention Bureau to issue public notice if that was desired.
Mr. King, and then Mr. Cooney.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. I don't have an issue with John Carroll being able to do it. But I do think that we would definitely need to notice or give notice to the community before it happens. I would throw out a period of a week beforehand, but I would think the city should have to give communication over multiple channels just to let people know so they can prepare for it. That's what I think.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Cooney.
Thank you. I would support including notification for the residents. I think that's important. The other items, when this probably when it was originally drafted, we have since we have to adjust some of the language within the proposal. There's a chart amendment in regards to gender. There's a lot of he's and hers, that are in that, so that would just need to be updated. I know that's not a significant change, but I do think the notification part should be important. And that would actually hopefully provide information for more residents in advance.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney. Now, I will say, even though we're giving notice, I'm very concerned about the residents who are being affected by this. Trauma is something else, and that PTSD in particular, it's like the people are being re-traumatized every time, they're hearing those fireworks and things like that. And then, like they were saying, I did see a lot of complaints about people's animals and how it was affecting their animals and upsetting their animals and everything. When John Carroll was shooting off those fireworks and nobody knew that they were going to be shooting them. I don't know if there's actually a way to prepare for it, even though they get the notice. Is it a way that they can prepare to keep their animals calm? I'm not sure.
Yep, you can get tranquilizers, but it's difficult. I would think, one of the challenges that I think we run into is we do things and assume people know what we're doing. We try to communicate as best we can. But I think since this is very targeted to one area of the city, that the residents around John Carroll should have the opportunity to perhaps give their thoughts about this adoption before somebody passes it. I don't know whether that would be, notifying them and maybe having a public hearing on it, or because it is the comments that were posted went after the last show in part where people were upset and wanted to know how that happened when we had an ordinance that said you're not allowed to do it. So I think that's an appropriate step to at least allow the people that are going to be affected the most to tell us what they think.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser. I agree with that. I don't know if anybody else agrees with that, but I think that's a good idea as well. Mr. King.
I would agree with that as well. Chief, Chief Perko, could you please remind us around the time of year that they have this display?
In June, right?
For this year, the application was made for June.
Okay. So when would we need to have an ordinance on the books for them to be able to proceed?
That would depend on the vendor availability and planning on John Carroll's side. I guess I couldn't answer that.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Cooney?
Yeah, I believe it's done during the alumni weekend,
That's correct.
which I think is the first weekend after graduation. Whenever that is, they tend to, because you have all the tents set up, I think they kind of, they run back to back with each
Yeah, I
other.
believe it's early June.
Yeah.
Yeah, all I know is the vendor reached out to us in February, so they were starting to get moving on the planning process early in the year.
Yeah, it's early, early June, yes.
June 6th and 7th this year is alumni weekend.
Is, one other question, do you know what day of the week, since it's on a weekend, are these fired off on Friday night or Saturday night?
I believe it's a Saturday. I mean,
I think it's
The ma-
Saturday.
yeah, because you have the alumni will come in on a Friday, then they do Saturday night. Yeah.
Okay,
They usually the display lasts for approximately 5 minutes. It's not long.
Correct.
They usually have like ice cream truck and some other stuff that are up there for the kids and people in the neighborhood, so.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney. And so if we refer this to the next council meeting, can the residents be invited then to speak? At the next council?
I would-
I think they'd have
Law
more of an
director.
opportunity during a safety meeting and it would only be this item on the agenda.
Oh, okay, because I was gonna say, we don't have enough time for safety
Yeah.
meetings for people to speak. We already experienced that. Yes, Mr. Cooney.
Thank you. Might I say, maybe we should consider a town hall. Or a safety meeting, just on the, not this safety
Yeah.
meeting, but schedule
Ace.
an additional safety meeting. And we
Be
can,
a standalone service.
correct, for a single agenda. Thank you, Vice Mayor. That would be my recommendation for consideration.
who notifies those people?
I think we need to have more than just electronic notification, that's for sure. Because we have a lot of residents in this city that are not using social media or going on the internet and all of that stuff, so we gotta have another way to notify them.
Here,
Ms. Marshall,
Oh, Mr. Cooney.
thank you. We have an alert system for non-emergency.
Yeah, we could do that. Another thing we can do is, that it's only as good as for the people who've signed up for it, and that just reset with, on April 1st. So people who haven't signed up for the new one aren't in necessarily. Could also have the, like planning commission, you have the clerk, you could designate an area that needs to get a letter, and clerk's office can just mail to everybody a general notice of the agenda.
Okay.
To do that.
Right, well. So we're gonna try to come up with a standalone safety meeting in the near future to get this all addressed and taken care of in time enough for John Carroll to do whatever they need to do if it's approved. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, awesome. Last item on the agenda, item 6, fire department service delivery update, and we have 7 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. I was gonna make some comments about an update and I decided to draft a memo that I'll read into the record here. And then I'll give you a copy, Ms. Marshall, and I'll send it out to all of council this evening.
Okay.
The purpose of this memo is to provide an important update on the service delivery of the University Heights Fire Department, both its legacy and its continued importance to public safety today. Is also to stress the importance of using the 911 system and the foundation it provides public safety, not only in this region, but nationwide. So about UHFD. For approximately 85 years, UHFD has been a cornerstone in this community. Our residents trust us because we've earned that trust through integrity, professionalism, and high standards of care. Our response capability. In addition to being certified as firefighters, many members are also certified as fire safety inspectors, fire and EMS service instructors, and some hold a host of other specialized certifications in technical rescue, tactical medicine, fire investigation, to name a few. But also importantly is that all of our members are certified paramedics, providing the highest level of pre-hospital medical care every shift to every incident. UHFD averaged a 4-minute response for emergency responses in University Heights over the last decade. This includes our turnout time and our travel time. Industry standards require an alarm answering time of 15 seconds, an alarm processing time of 64 seconds, a turnout time for fires of 80 seconds, a turnout time for EMS call of 60 seconds, and a typical travel time of 1 to 2 minutes. If a second ambulance or fire apparatus is needed, our regional automatic mutual aid system ensures help arrives within an additional 1 to 2 minute response on average over the last decade. These outstanding response times in our region are due to our uniquely dense and geographically small communities with robust public safety departments that are comprised of all full-time career professional staff that follow, meet, and exceed national standards. And I think our ISO Insurance Services Office score is a testament to that. Why 911 matters and why I'm talking about it. 911 system was established in 1968 as a nationwide emergency number in the United States to ensure the public had one simple, universally recognized number to access police, fire, or other emergency medical services. Since its inception, 911 has become the foundation of public safety, designed to provide immediate, coordinated response by trained professionals. It replaced the confusion of multiple local numbers and streamlined the process for people in crisis to get help fast. Today, modern next generation 911, also known as NG 911, systems enhance this capability further by routing cell phone calls directly to the correct local dispatch center, allowing for local location-based services that pinpoint where the help is needed, and enabling simultaneous dispatch of multiple agencies, improving response speed and coordination, such as law enforcement agencies, technical rescue teams, crisis teams, and other county and state assets. We are a part of the next generation 911 system. Not everybody is yet in Ohio. Our calls, our cell phone calls go directly to our regional dispatch center, and they are not routed out of town or out of state. Our dispatch center also provides emergency medical dispatch guidance and real pre-notification to fire department responders, reducing response time and enhancing scene preparation. This system includes trained emergency medical dispatchers who begin life-saving guidance and alert our crews instantly while taking the 911 call. It is one of the most efficient and coordinated dispatch systems in this state. 911 is more than a number. It is a highly integrated system of dispatchers, first responders, technology, and mutual aid networks that ensure help arrives quickly and efficiently. This coordinated and integrated public safety infrastructure is designed to deliver the fastest, highest quality care. Why do I bring this up and why is it a concern? Recently, a private volunteer ambulance group has begun operating in the city. While their intentions may be good and to assist the public, their presence has unfortunately created confusion in the community about who to call in an emergency. There have already been incidents where delayed fire department notification occurred because 911 wasn't called first. These delays have been regularly occurring and have been as significant as 20 to 30 minutes before calling the fire department. Our standards of care. In emergencies, seconds count. Delays, even small ones, can change outcomes, and they could become fatal. The fire department must be notified immediately so that we can deliver definitive care without interruption or delay. And so our message is that we are proud of the care we provide and the trust we've built in the city. People in the city need help, whether it's fire, medical, or rescue, they call 911. We'll be there in minutes and in some instance seconds, prepared, trained with the full support of a regional public safety network behind us. So in closing, I respect all the efforts of everyone in our community that desires to serve and help their neighbors. I think, especially as a public servant myself, that that's commendable, and we're appreciative of help that people want to give. But emergency response must remain unified, clear, and immediate by municipal agencies at all levels. UHFD is ready, and we are honored to continue protecting the city just as we've done over the last 84 years. And so I ask all of you for your assistance to encourage our residents to always call 911 in an emergency, for all emergencies, to ensure we maintain the highest level of care and response our community has come to expect.
Thank you, Chief Parko. Any questions or discussion on what Chief Parko just shared? All right. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our meeting. And I would like to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we adjourn the council meeting.